What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. It's been a bit, but getting back on this train, this space train. Let me know if you can hear me okay, and if it's clear and not distorting. And also, yeah, I got Jupiter in view, top of the stack tonight. Got a waning gibbous, and also Saturn and Jupiter coming up in a very cool triangular formation. It's very far southeast for me, so it's probably going to be a short show, but thankfully the clouds cleared enough. Got Jupiter in view, like I said. What do we got? Ganymede on the left, and then Io, Europa, Callisto on the right. Those are the moons. Hopping in the chat room. Thanks for joining me. Astrolabium, Leslie, what's going on? Plain Truth, what's happening? Lost Brooklyn, hey ya. Awesome. So I'm just gonna, what's up there, Jedi Princess? Good morning. Nice to see you. Alright, so yeah, I had clouds all evening, but I've been waiting for this shot for a few weeks now. Had storms for what seemed like a whole month. And the world gets crazier and crazier as this year progresses. Could not have imagined, but it is on its cycle. And there's some crazy interaction with space, so it doesn't surprise me. What's going on, Heather Parker? Will I play Light of the Moon? Pretty please. I can totally do that. I've actually written a whole bunch of new music. I was going to play for y'all once everybody joins. Once we get up to around 20 people, I'll play the new jams I've been working on for 2020. That's about it. I mean, I was just checking some space news, and of course Thunderbolts Project has been putting out some videos. The best stuff, I think, really is Pierre-Marie Robitaille, Sky Scholar. Go check it out, links in the description. He's just really talking some sense about the lattice structure. But yeah, I was reading some stuff about launches, about this new Viper mission going to the moon, 2022, and what else? Phys.org has a whole bunch of space stuff, but really, it's almost infuriatingly vague. So, I don't know, maybe I'll get into it in a little bit. I'm gonna go check on the moon right now, because I really want to make sure I capture Saturn and the moon as well as Jupiter. Let's put on some Light of the Moon per request, and then I'll see if I can't get us a shot of the moon as well. It's been a while, man. Missed it. What's going on, Debbie Carson? How you doing? Welcome, welcome. Thanks, Astro. That's a little light of the moon. What's going on, everybody? Join in. Let's see who showed up. Genghis, what's going on? NGC, what's going on? Hoosier, what's happening? Said, heard people talk about the Earth map being reflected in the moon years ago, but never quite saw it. First time hearing of Milky Way. Hey, thanks for that, Plain Truth. Wondering where I've been. I've been around. It's been actually quite cloudy stormy for weeks. I kind of wanted to do the full moon. Like I said, I've been kind of also on break from space, from YouTube in general. I needed a real kind of cut some ties with that for a little bit because it was just getting too much. Also kind of wanted to enjoy the moon without having to scope it or stream it. That was kind of why I've been taking some time. But like I said, I want to ramp up again this year towards the views in September, October, and November. It's going to be amazing. Of course, tonight, this kind of trifecta of planets and the moon can't stay away. But I've been busy as well, and then weather the summers in Florida get really, really nasty. Let me see. So I'm going to stream as much as I can, kind of starting up this summer towards the fall, and then definitely kind of get on a regular schedule during the winter months. Let's see what else. I was going to say the idea of the fractalization of the Milky Way on the surface of the moon. So as I've talked about before, I feel like the imprint, if you look at your palm, you'll see these striations and dendritic ridges that are kind of baked into our hands and our skin. And I feel like that's also a similar type of pattern that's created by the universal lattice fractal, the geometric structure, that intrinsic shape. And it's basically baked into kind of all the surfaces of the planets and Earth, and probably our hands, and similarly with fruit and with lightning bolts. Whether or not it's the exact same representation of what we see, from our perspective as the Milky Way passes over us, or from our vantage point, it's hard to gauge whether it's one-to-one exactly the same. But I feel like the reason it looks the same is because the features are actually built from the same types of spherical into hexagonal interaction, so boundary layers. And then, of course, that creates this torus with the hourglass and the kind of shape that theory hypothesis talks about, Ken Wheeler, in conjunction kind of with the electric star model and the lattice sun that Sky Scholar talks about. It's kind of one big baked-in theory. But I think it makes a lot of sense. Dealing with a lot of clouds tonight. I don't know, it was clearing up for a second, now it's all covered, but I'm just going to be patient here. Let's see. Yeah, stormy weather. It's been nuts. So just a couple more old tunes, and then I'll play the new stuff as soon as we get some views. I've been enjoying writing some new 2020 material. I was stuck for a while, and yeah, writing some full songs is good. So I'll be playing that shortly. For now, I shall play something relatively new. Let's see, maybe it'll clear. We'll do... So this is a shot of Jupiter right before it hits the top of the windowsill, or at least the scope stops being able to see it clearly. We got a tiny shot, a tiny glimpse of the Great Red Spot, which is super cool. Whew. It is very, very humid right now. It's cooking my brain, but this is a killer shot. I'm glad to share it with y'all. All right, let's do some new tunes. This one is called Bring Me Back. Fresh TBS tunes for y'all. mind. Tell me what's left for it. Let's bring in the rest of it. Oh, making the best of it. You left your heart at the wheel. You know the deal, so you gotta feel the rigid in the end. So now we will call across the river. You know we can survive. Oh yeah. I'm falling down the river. You know we will survive. People in our eyes. Some hell to deal, you know the deal. But something you gotta feel the rigid in the end. So, oh, falling, reaching the fire, open your heart to the dream. Slowly we burn as rages and hold on to me. Only this ready, I know we'll survive, but we will love the trouble. So we will survive. I'm falling down the river. You know we will survive. The cost for us to live. There goes another one. See her now climb the floor, sitting upside the thing, trying to be true. Bringing up folding chairs. Funny how you move. We will figure this in a sense. Some would say it's just a part of you, like the seeds of the panic grow. Yes, you know when you're living in the dream. Times of the love, see that you need. You know, I just had another one now. So I just had another one now. Some would say it's just a part of you, like the seeds of the planet now. All right, that's some new tunage. There was Bring Me Back. There was, what's the other one? Stereotypic. Then there was Drift Away the New Goodbye, and this is All Over Again, which is just a demo, but I like this bit. Gives me this is also, I think it's a 9/4, which is always tricky to write in different time signatures. So that's some new stuff. I got a couple more that I'll play for y'all. Just want to hop in and say what's up to everybody. And got some Kronos, some Saturn in View on the 11. It's always nice because you can see all the mid-band. And I think Jupiter's already out of view for me, but so it's Jupiter up at the top, and then to the left of that is Saturn if you're looking outside and underneath that's the moon. What's up, Relic? Thanks, Jedi Princess, I appreciate that. What's up, Jonan Kettler? I hope I'm pronouncing that okay. Jenin, or Jonan, or Yonan. Silent Murmur, what's happening? Arum Vorax, what's happening? And Esoteric Gold, how you doing? It's been crazy times, but I've been just trying to stay very quiet and centered and just observe this crazy world happen. All right, let's do a couple more little tunes. Let's see. What else do I got? I know I exported one more. Here's another one. It's called Proper Glow. They're all work in progress titles. All right. There's a vibey group tune. Another one. Yeah, these are all very rough, but rough. Time to just share them, get some live feedback from y'all. Let's see what else I got. Did I do all over again? Did that. Yeah, I know I got a couple more working on them, but I haven't exported them. So that's fun. And I will play Bring Me Back again later. The View Saturn is really killer right now, I gotta say. I'm really enjoying it. It's been a while. What's going on, Shadow Moses? How you doing? Indira's dancing. She likes this one. Thanks, NGC. I appreciate that. Relic. I still have to do that Spotify stuff. Gotta like export all the AIFF files. But for now, I'm just gonna play it for y'all right here. This one's called Nice. Would you comfort me tonight? All right. So, back at the moon here, or I was there, yeah, back at the moon. Ooh, it is really hot, makes my brain a little bit fuzzy, but so nice to see everybody hanging out. What's up, Vicky? And who else joined? Cyber Sully, how's it going? Let me know if I missed you. Give you a shout out. Yeah, so the clouds are kind of giving us a little bit of a respite around the moon, but Saturn and Jupiter are done. At least we got a quick shot of those, really nice. I wanted to just log the particular Trifecta conjunction tonight. I hope the weather is going to get a bit clearer over the next few weeks. I think I'll try and do a stream tomorrow night around this time, because it'll still be this configuration, like a little bit different, but we'll still get this moon. And then I'll take a break probably till next moon cycle, but then I'm gonna start streaming a little bit more next month, hopefully with less storms. Let's see, I want to talk about some electric universe stuff just for a second, because I feel like nobody's really saying it. I've been watching a lot of different videos. It's kind of the typical stuff. There's a lot of, I saw all the Elon Musk stuff. Besides politics, I'm not going to really talk about that, but in terms of science, things are still happening, and it feels like nobody's really addressing the main point that I've been trying to make, which is that information is outside the human body in these kind of shells, in this kind of plasma. And it's the same probably for the memory of Earth and the memory of our solar system. And this is completely conjecture on my part. I could be totally wrong, but I feel like it does have some merit. And if you kind of apply all these different models from Ken Wheeler, from Donald Scott, a star model, and you also take into account Sky Scholar, Pierre-Marie Robitaille, talking about the lattice structure, you can kind of see how planets, moons, and Earths interact. And I feel like you see all these science shows talking about like finding alien life forms, finding exoplanets, everything that's not related to really what the true discovery would be, is this kind of unified concept. I found this other channel that has a ton of views. Lix Friedman, I think, is the channel. Maybe people have seen it. The guy's very interesting, and he's had almost everybody in the kind of scientific community on. And I listened to a few of the chats that he had, and they're very interesting, but again, people are just making it so vague and so obtuse when they talk about plasma science, when they talk about the repercussions of what might happen if we readdressed redshift. And I guess I kind of stayed away from YouTube because I don't want to like belabor the point, but I feel it's necessary to talk about it sometimes. So it's important to, at least from my vantage point, is to understand that the sun really has a surface, and the corona's magnetic structure and the way they represent it is actually completely in line with this intrinsic geometry, this hexagonal lattice structure. Same thing with Jupiter. If you look at pictures of Jupiter and Saturn up close, you'll see that they exhibit the same type of swirly patterns that can be represented using fluid dynamics, which run on a system of hexagonal flows, really, different noise patterns. So if we're looking at the moon right now, on the left you got Mare Imbrium, dead center you got Sea of Serenity, on the far right you got Sea of Tranquility. And then if you look at your hand, you'll see that you have these three dendritic structures that kind of are just baked into your skin. And these structures have similar geometry to the surface of the moon. This is so important because it means that the imprint, this idea of the genetic code, is imprinted upon every object in the universe, not just certain things, but everything at a different scalar dimension. So this idea of dimensions really is more about size and I think scalar functionality as opposed to this idea of mysterious hidden dimensions. So I said corona low, right? Well, the sun's corona actually is really so important here, as well as, you know, the elongation of Venus. If you follow the Velikovsky work, then, and Venus being proven to be more like a comet than a planet, creating some sort of electrical interaction with the Earth, triggering massive sicknesses. What's going on, Kimmy? Nice to see you. Hey, hey, hey. Looking at the sun right now in GC. Oh yeah, you mean because you're in Australia, right? Like, are you 11 hours ahead? Yeah, I'd like to do some solar work as well, but man, it is cooking, I gotta say. It's really far too hot to do solar work in Florida, at least during the times that you can do it. It's just like 90 degrees out. But once in a while, if there's an eclipse, I'll try it. Either way, the point that I'm trying to make is that there is this real structure to the world. It is the Godhead. It is the hand of God. It is the Brahman. It is constrictions, like wave fronts, rarefactions and compressions, and an intrinsic geometry that overlays almost everything from honeycomb to molecules to your hand to the surface of planets and moons. And science completely has an entirely different agenda about making abstract concepts like things like figuring out whether there's a dim star next to some other star, or trying to find a planet that is Earth-like, instead of actually readdressing three really important things: the cosmic microwave background radiation and its results, and the way Pierre-Marie Robitaille broke it apart. And besides that, all the other stuff that he's talking about, like the conservation of, what is it, thermodynamics. I'm trying to remember, the black body radiation, where he's talking about how, man, the guy's name is escaping me. It's not Planck, it's, anyway, head on over to Sky Scholar's channel. He can explain it a lot more clearly than I can. But Kirchhoff, that's what it is. Kirchhoff's law of black body radiation, and explains how it was flawed, and then explains that we have really, in addition to that, he also starts talking about the cosmic microwave background radiation results from the Kobe satellites, and how you can't really remove this signature noise that we're getting, which he postulates is coming from our oceans, from Earth itself. And they're saying, you know, scientists postulate that this noise is coming from beyond a certain point in space. This is massive to reassessing astronomy, astrophysics, cosmology. It's necessary. Nobody's talking about it, not on any channel. I mean, obviously Sky Scholar's talking about it, but... And then second is talking about the sun being lattice, like having a surface, which also Pierre-Marie Robitaille is talking about. And then finally, I mean, I could go down a list of 10 different things, but at least that, and then of course redshift and Halton ARP, talking about the compendium of peculiar galaxies, where he talks about how redshift is intrinsically age-driven and not distance-driven. So readdressing redshift, readdressing the CMB, and readdressing the surface of the sun, three paramount points in astronomy right now that are not even being like blinked at by any big channels on YouTube. And certainly it's very strange that Thunderbolts Project, that actually does really kind of subscribe to these, or they really taught us a lot about this stuff, doesn't actually put this all together. So if you couple this concept, these three concepts, with the idea that memory actually exists outside the human body in shells, these shells are also perceived as time. When you die, these shells collapse, when you pop like a bubble. We can be scanned like these shells. This is how things get connected. This is what transmitted by air really means. Things are transmitted through these plasma shells, using basically electrical variances between shells, transmitting concepts in electrical density ether. And this is why we can see the moon. This is how we can read words on a screen and connect with one another, because of the same concepts. And further, the interactions between people probably mimic the same magnetic field lines that exist conceptually, or that exists in reality around us as plasma layers. All right. Time for some tunes. What's up, Corey Connolly? What's up, everybody? Hit me with any questions or thoughts on what I said. I'll jam out for a bit.
Space theater seems no one weirder comes. Good Baron, soulful speaker, bring me back over telephone lines, running amok in future time. But my space theater seems no one lives here, and existence has no motives either. Bring me back to your elegant crime, free from jams into your mind.
Calling in from outer space, forwarding them their answer. Sending out telemetry and tell me what you'd do with it if you were me.
Position from above, she said it was the Colonel. Right to be making love, it wasn't eternal. We got you back on stage, just to never hurt. Your band had left the classes, wasn't even booked. This in the middle, so I can't afford it. Went to the side on your big taxi, no matter how you earn it. This full correction through when your life was bitter. Bring it to your rebirth day, we busted out on Twitter. Rolling out of this street, feeling the sun density too. Rolling out of this street, feeling the sun density too. Rolling out of this street, feeling the sun density too. Rolling out of this street, feeling the sun density too.
Calling in from outer space, holding them their answer. Sending out telemetry and tell me what you'd do with it if you were me.
Falling away of the earth. I'm calling up the space, but you don't even hear me. I'm calling down from the fallen. Souls, what you see with fire.
All right. So, trying to do a little bit of moonage zoom here, but the clouds have moved in pretty hefty. I'm gonna stream for a little bit longer. We'll catch another 30 at least, or 20 at least. Getting some moon views here in a bit, but just wanted to keep talking a little bit about plasma and kind of the holistic approach to understanding this information is outside the body and like how that would really affect so many different things if from really if you consider it, the way I envision it is that when you're born, you're this tiny little speck, right? This concept, and this concept starts to oscillate, basically compression, rarefaction, pulsating, and as it pulsates within this ether magnetic plasma that we live in, it creates layers around it, and these shells essentially amount to seconds or months, days, months, years, a lifetime, and it also stores all the information at that moment. So Eileen McCusick, who talks about the human biofield, and she's done 20 years of essentially what is Reiki, but using this human biofield structure that she envisions. So what I'm saying is really not new. It's really kind of copying what she said, but applying it to, I think she has probably come to the same conclusion. But if you really take it and kind of apply it to the geometry, apply it to what Donald Scott talks about with the electric star model, and how the flow of the current works, and how stars are induced from their surroundings, and Z pinches, and you talk about just everything in space, you relate it back to the human body and Earth and the solar system, you start to realize that there is this kind of give and take structure between a nucleus and its surrounding shells. So as you grow and you create these shells, which is the human life, this is essentially what the mystics have talked about as the Akashic record, which is this idea that information is never really destroyed, right? It's always imprinted in the ether. And so Earth must have the memories of everything that's happened to it. We've had, as long as you exist, I assume, you have these layers around you that actually pertain to every moment in your life. And the way you actually remember things is the brain sends out a signal from the center core to a certain shell, and it starts to sympathetically resonate with that piece of data. And you're basically fishing. And that's also the reason that you get random thoughts that invade your mind, because it's really, you're carrying around almost like a record player around your body. If you break it down even further, you'll see that you have the chakras. Each chakra has its own kind of memory system. So when they say the brain is the gut of the human body is the brain, or the heart is the brain, it's because what they're actually referring to is holistically, if you look at it, you'll have the 7 chakras. Each of them have their own kind of system of layers and shells, and then the hourglass with the torus around it. And then the human body itself has these 7 chakras as the center of this apple core, and the torus and the hourglass, and then these shells around the human body. So this kind of free-flowing plasma, as Eileen puts it. But for me, I think that there is this intrinsic structure, this geometry, that is denotated. What is it? It's essentially what Ken Wheeler talks about in terms of, essentially, you can't have one without the other. It's what it really is. The words are escaping me now, but if you kind of relate it to what Alan Watts was talking about with Hindu and Zen philosophy, it's the black and the white make the whole, and not one or the other. And so everything, as above, so below, is one of the terms. Similarly, like human bodies only exist in relation to the counter space around the human body at any given moment. So around the body is a negative image, a negative outline in 3-dimensional space of the human form. Pushing down, should I play catch instead of keeping on talking? I just want to finish up this thought. So you have this counter space in space. This is what dark matter is. For some reason, scientists who have representation visually of this structure still keep referring it to as like mysterious dark matter, as if we don't know what that really is. What it really is, it's the page to the words. You know, without a white or blank page, you can't see the actual letters, and therefore they need each other. And it's very interesting if you relate it to philosophy, ethics, culture, in addition to physics. But so to finish the point, so we grow, and we grow these shells around us, and therefore all of us, each of us is creating a sphere of influence on our surroundings, just like bubbles in a sink, and then they all connect in different kind of, really what they are, it's a circle packing mechanism that probably runs on rarefaction compression, so pumping of a wave or an oscillation, or path of least resistance, which is why we have dendritic structures. And I think these two things in conjunction, and knowing that the human body actually retains its life outside it, would change so much about our culture and our reality. It would really kind of give a physical understanding as to the connection between people and between the culture, and how, you know, the idea that, for me, the idea that everybody's soul or construct of themselves is within the skin is actually quite interesting, because it does create this notion of separation. And people have to think connectivity is this invisible concept. Whereas if you approach it from a plasma perspective, you can see that it's actually quite a physical concept. And just because we don't see it with our optical nerve, it doesn't mean that we don't purely exist within this plasma. So it's not like you need to see it in order to believe it. You actually are it. So we're probably pinched tubes within this plasma, conscious plasma ether or whatever. That that could be the God, or that could just be a soup, or that could just be a construct. But let's see, jump in the chat. But for me, it's a holistic look at, or not even a holistic look. I think in astronomy, when I look for articles or videos and I try my damnedest to listen to people, it always blows my mind that nobody ever talks about readdressing or reapproaching redshift and what the implications are. People don't talk about the fact that the speed of light is variable and what implications that would have. People do not talk about Halton Arp and peculiar galaxies. People don't talk about Pierre-Marie Robitaille and how he's completely decimated the cosmic microwave background radiation argument about, one, the expansion of the universe, two, the heat map of the universe, excuse me, et cetera, as well as the lattice of the sun. And people don't ever consider talking about how the fact that a human life and memory is actually stored outside the human body. And so every time I don't stream, I feel like I'm not saying that publicly, and I don't hear anyone else really saying that, except probably Eileen McCusick. But so go follow her, check out Sky Scholar, and yeah, now I'll play catch for y'all.
I left home
That one was a catch. All right, hopping in here, say what's up to Cognitive Dissonance and Sully's, what's happening. Thanks for all the love on the tunes, y'all, and listen to me rant about our shells, our plasma shells. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. I mean, I feel like, what do you think would happen, or what do you think would change if people really understood that memory was outside the human body? Think about that all the time. And it's just like life goes by and those questions don't get asked. So I'm gonna ask it and think about it. Who knows if that would really ever happen? Maybe it's like, it's almost even against the whole system for, and I mean that in a holistic sense in terms of this geometry. You know, there are spots in it. So for example, if you follow the Thunderbolts Project and you see the Stickman figure, which is really like, you know, a line art version of a human body. So a cross with the upside, you know, with the legs, and then you have the two dots along the waist, which are really a half of a donut or half of the torus shape. And so these two dots are almost like where the human eyes are. It's where, if you see really that structure, those two hexagons back to back, or yeah, creating the boundary layer, you'll get this torus shape. I mean, this is fractally recursive, repeating throughout all the universe. And this is how you know you're really one with the universe. It's not just a concept, even though it's a digital signature, electric signature concept. But, and what I mean by that is that I think that the ether is essentially potential, and I feel like these compressions and rarefactions create these pulsations or these kind of dense plasma nodes of vibrational pinches, and these pinches manifest as what we see as matter, and everything else around it is antimatter or dark matter, counter space that holds it and forms it, and they go together, hand in hand. And so I feel like maybe where the torus appears, or where these different parts of the differential of the shells, that this is where people exist in terms of intelligence, in terms of their role in life, that people play, you know, exists along these currents, these magnetic field lines, as well as the spirals emanating from this donut shape. So I think understanding that consciousness exists both, you know, I could say that it's both inside and outside the body, which it is, but really more so the understanding that the brain actually, the idea of the pineal gland maybe, or the crown chakra sending out a signal. And I would assume that it's not just the crown chakra, it's probably the heart chakra and the stomach chakra, like every and the chakra being another recursive fractal repeating, I would say, is this a Bennett pinch, a Z pinch, or a version of a plasma donut, like a plasmoid, and then this plasmoid sends out a signal to its shell, like so the stomach sends out a concept to, or a signal like a transceiver essentially. It sends out, but it also sends back a signal. So the information that's stored in these shells, I'm trying to kind of formulate it, actually sends a return signal, and that's how we perceive things, and that's how we get to store information like smell, an entire holographic memory. Memories are not just these things that I think are sitting inside the human brain. And so similarly, what's interesting is that Pierre-Marie Robitaille, who's you know, developed the MRI, hasn't really considered necessarily, maybe he has, but he's never really talked about potentially this concept being the case where these lattice structures actually store information, and this is how things exist, by having their information in shells sympathetically resonating from its central core, its nucleus, and then creating this holistic system that actually resonates as a whole, thus creating like a particle at its very core. Let's see. What's up, PKKK? Silent Murmur says, I think it may be due to inert circulating elements like argon that probably hold magnetic imprints. That's a great way to phrase it. I think like I guess one of these concepts about how the periodic table of elements and all these gases actually emanate along a Fibonacci spiral, which comes out of this geometric shape. So the nucleus, this plasmoid, actually emanates, what's it called? Polar vortices in a Fibonacci spiral if you look at it from the top down. But if you look at it from the side, it looks like a cone. So I feel like as molecules, or as really as atoms kind of move along these spirals, they actually morph and change into all the different elements. Let's see. We're a collection of information that already exists that we choose to experience and apply to our bodies, field, or spirit. I like that. I like that. Most Western pineal glands are highly calcified. I've heard that as well. But just because it's calcified doesn't mean it doesn't work. You know, look at your sink, there's a ton of calcification, but it still has, the ability to transmit. Esoteric Gold says a study in 2019 found that those in cosmology believe it is at a crisis point. I think the electric universe is catching on. So it's very confusing, like considering that, one, it's so obvious to me and to many, but two is that it's not even, well, I know why, but it isn't even hinted at. It isn't even discussed or debated. There aren't articles saying that string theory, totally wrong, scientists looking for new unified theory. But it's definitely gone nowhere, string theory. And then you also have Einstein and Newtonian mechanics that have been constantly tested and put through the ringer recently. And these results need to be looked at, especially the concept of the expanding universe, the idea of the Big Bang. So for example, like an article will be, scientists looking to discover what happened a trillionth of a second after the Big Bang, which sounds very pompous and also is completely a pointless venture. Why would you spend any time doing that? It makes people feel like that they're not smart enough to understand why scientists pick this particular thing to look at. For example, exoplanets. So it sounds very I don't know, it sounds like, in a way, it belittles you in terms of science, because it doesn't explain the rationale behind why it would want to find out what happened a trillionth of a second after the Big Bang, versus something else. For example, like figuring out like what redshift is, or figuring out the variable speed of light, or figuring out information being outside the human body. Any number of different things like that. So much bigger concepts, I think, than figuring out if there are Earth-like exoplanets. Much bigger venture than finding out if there are aliens. I think understanding that information's outside the body, that redshift actually is a measure of youth and not distance, would absolutely, completely change cosmology at its front, at its face. And then further, things like the comets being dirty snowballs due to sublimating ice, versus understanding that comets are dusty, rocky, electric objects that affect the sun, affect the earth. Yeah, those are some ideas. Yeah, clouds are relentless tonight. I'm not sure what's going on, but Kimmy says elites eat pineal glands and extract adrenochrome. So I don't know, like, I gotta say there's this concept that maybe I feel like money really has nothing to do with whether or not you understand this concept. And I feel like a lot of rich people spend a lot of time trying to stay healthy and live forever, but I think knowing this information is more important than living forever, simply because once you know this information, you realize the point is not to live forever. And it gives you this really nice physical reason for death and meaning of life, versus this constant struggle to kind of get off Earth or save Earth or live forever or grow younger. Fountain of youth, salvationism. What's the point of that if you don't understand anything? So, NGC says, spend money on our own planet first. I mean, really simple stuff. If you go to, like, I don't even want to spread the crappy gospel, but go check out phys.org and hit astronomy, and then read all these articles and how they're phrased, and what the papers are, what the books are, what quests these space agencies are on, and try and understand like why they're on these quests. Like what would so for example, this new Viper mission to the moon, NASA's trying to get a little rover to go to the south pole of the moon to potentially extract water ice for potential future missions. But didn't we go to the moon, or didn't we already send LRO or the Grail missions or landers, and other countries have sent landers proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's definitely water on the moon, and that you don't need to go find out if there's water on the moon or how to extract it. It's already been solved. So why is there any money being spent on a future moon rover that really is going to find water on the moon, instead of actually taking, you know, ultraviolet 4K streaming video of Earth from the surface of the moon, which would be probably the coolest thing to watch ever. But that won't happen. We'll just see another like series of photos from a small lander, just like the Chang'e rover, and it'll be just this strange surface, and you have to take them at their word that they're actually on the moon doing research, as opposed to looking for very high quality data. It's pretty screwed, just say it like that. So while everything's raging in the world, there's still a very esoteric understanding and debate in science that really needs to happen, and it's so few and far between in terms of who's talking about it. Richard Anderson II, what's going on, says, we either went to the moon and seen something we cannot talk about, or we did not actually go there. So I think that I got to a place where the photos are definitely real. There are photos that are just impossible to fake, and that there's a plethora, like in excess of thousands of photos that look legit from outside of Earth to a certain degree. So those photos are real. Whether or not humans actually took those photos and not robots, that, you know, is something that could be debated. It's very hard to really say. Even if you, let's say you took it at face value that men walked on the moon and everything is above board. The fact that today we still can't get a basic rover to the moon just very easily is one of the strangest imaginable things, given how crazy things actually are and how strange people are and politicians and governments and everything is so strange. Even stranger is how incredibly silent the status quo is about one having a national holiday attributed to landing on the moon and walking on the moon, which is basically a miracle. Furthermore, the fact that no other country can achieve this feat when every other technological feat has been achieved by every other country, small, poor, large, backwards, don't matter. From cars to boats to helicopters to computers, basically every single, and the reason they copy the leader is because of the same reason that I was talking about, the fractalization of information and culture. Of course, other people were coming up with certain things that Edison was coming up with and Tesla was coming up with at the same exact time, because of this interconnected web of information that Rupert Sheldrake talks about, that Eileen talks about, that the electric universe essentially tacitly promotes. But if you have this awareness, how is it that one tiny part of this fractal was able to get to the moon several times, come back, and then no other part of the fractal is able to replicate this? It's just profoundly, it's just so unbelievable that it has to be one of two things. It's either happening super regularly and very easily, or it's quite impossible to do it. I'm sure there's probably another dozen or so postulates that you can come up with, but those are the two for me. It's like either there's an entire space program that's happening completely out of view of the public, or it's essentially an impossible thing that is trying to be solved in the public view, while also having a historical moon mission that had people walking on the surface of the moon, and a future Mars mission of people walking on Mars, when people don't even understand how far away Mars actually really is. But anyway, point is, there's a lot of evidence that NASA and space agencies can actually send robots that take pictures from outside of Earth. I was watching some of the Cassini-Huygens stuff. That stuff is absolutely incredible. I can't imagine like a scope big enough to capture the rings of Saturn that close. Same thing with like Jupiter and this new Juno mission. I mean, like even with the biggest telescope, even though I'm very skeptical, it would be really hard to get those shots of Jupiter, and they're pretty real. So, you know, in a sea of lies, there's a ton of truth. And so you gotta kind of take the good with the bad. But here, what's good is that we got the moon, and this is the real moon, and furthermore, understanding the surface of the moon looking like the human body. Like right now, even looking at Mare Imbrium on the left, Sea of Serenity on the right, and then underneath that, that's that whole region where the Apollo missions apparently happened, but really, it looks like a skull in a way. It looks like a face. And the reason it looks like that is not because people are just, you know, I saw a face in it, you know, it's just being so silly. No, there. Let's see. All right, a couple more tunes, but I think it cleared up a little bit so we can see the noise. This one is, let's see. No, maybe I'll play Bring Me Back one more time. This is almost done.
Bring me back, just bring me back out of the cold. Ooh, bring me back, just bring me back. I need you more. This cosmic revelation, we all have our bases to play. We the creatures grinding against the grain. Built your world with nothing to fear but yourself. Apparitions that we bleed through. Every fear, your open wide soul modulation. You just come feel this ride so high, your love I'm craving. But I can't see it till you, ooh, just bring me back.
visions sold at the bitter end. Scanning fine features down at the village inn. A nightmare on Prince found you in Triangle Park. Dark subway in the bar on Houston. Yeah, on Houston. I don't wanna fall asleep no more. Just waiting for this train at Princeton, Houston. Say, I don't wanna follow shit no more. Just get me to the rain at Princeton, Houston. I don't wanna fall asleep no more. Just waiting for a train at Princeton, Houston. I don't wanna follow shit no more. Just get me to the rain at Princeton, Houston. To the dreams we ever flown, find ourselves above the walls. Told you everything, saw it and everything. To the stream we ever rode, find ourselves above the walls. Humans in the wing, humans in the ring.
The midnight moon will be right up with the midnight moon. We'll be right up at the midnight moon. It's right up past the midnight moon. We'll be right. I wanna see, but you're riding of the midnight moon. Such a riders of the midnight moon. So know you're inside, cleaning up every day, till holding up your carcass, seeing inside your feels like the ocean. Feel it on the inside, breaking down every year, fading on the freeway.
Alright, y'all. I think I'm gonna call it a night. It's pretty cloudy. I'm getting a little tired. It's been good chatting with everybody, catching up. Kinda always here, but I'll hop on when the time is right, you know. Shout outs to everybody who didn't make it tonight. Ellie and Mary and all the good people. Shout outs to y'all catching this tomorrow if you do. I would say stay safe, but main thing is just enjoy life while we got it. So yeah, I'll play a couple more tunes. Let me know if you have any shout outs or thoughts before I close it down. 2:30 on the East Coast, Edge of Reality, keeping us waiting.